Hail, intrepid viewers, and welcome back to Wonder No More. When last we played, something happened. I don't know what. With that argument, Kana and Chiyo did what I asked of them. They then handed over the supplies they needed and hung back as I approached Rizai. Once more, I forgot about this hurdle already. How time flies. I used the water to clean his leg, washing out splinters from the puncture wound as I removed any obstructions I found. I then bound his leg with the cloth Chiyo gave me in order to stop the bleeding and finally sent Rizai off after reminding him of our deal. Is it really alright to just let him go like that? Kana-chan told me about your deal, but even so, how do you know he will honor it? With Rizai no longer in sight, Kana picked up the bucket and remaining cloth and headed back to the village. Chiyo, however, was not convinced by what she had heard and seen and showed no sign of returning just yet. The simple answer is, I don't. Rizai might tell the Kotokushi the truth the second he returns, sparking a manhunt akin to my escape from last year. If you know that, then how could you let him go? You're supposed to be this village's leader. How could you knowingly endanger everyone like that? Chiyo shouted at me angrily, obviously not approving of my actions. And I couldn't blame her. To Chiyo, a young girl cut off from greater society, my actions may indeed have seemed like those of a traitor. Even so, my actions were not without reason. Chiyo, what do you think would happen if I killed Rizai? What do you think? What do you mean? What did she say? I don't even know. Yes, if I killed that scout, what difference do you think it would have made? Isn't it obvious? That samurai wouldn't be able to report that he found you or our village. We'd be safe. I shook my head at Chiyo's naive conclusion. Chiyo, when a scout goes missing, they aren't simply forgotten. If you send Kana into the forest and she never came back, where is the first place you would look for her? In the forest. Exactly. It isn't to say that you were wrong, Chiyo. Rizai may indeed tell the Kotokushi where I am, but this way, there's still a chance that he'll honor our deal, and that's far better than guaranteed destruction at the hands of his comrades. I see. So even if the odds aren't in our favor, at least this way there's still a glimmer of hope. Correct. But there's more to it than that. I know it may not seem like much considering what's on the line, but even so, life is precious, Chiyo, and preserving life is something you should never feel bad about. I'm really curious if we'll get into like what caused the main character's like character change, because he goes from being like a bad guy to being like a kind of self-righteous, like I know all the best ways to behave. It's like, that's fine, but how did you learn that? Like you can't just suddenly go, hey, am I a baddie? I don't know if we'll ever figure it out. In the week that followed Rizai's appearance, Hatsu Village underwent many changes. First and foremost, all repairs were put on hold, as were any plans to create new rabbit traps. All new traps were closer in size to Araki's trap, the one that nailed Rizai, and we branched out into other traps not suitable for hunting small animals. We experimented with pitfalls, used string as tripwire near beds of rock, and even trimmed back some of the brushes and trees to make several areas of the forest look almost identical. After that, I began coordinating evacuation exercises in which Kana would lead the other villagers to the underground spring that Chiyo found. The children would help the elderly to escape quickly, and we soon marked out an appropriate route to the spring. While the villagers were fleeing, Chiyo and I would climb up our lumber stockpile onto the roof of a house near the edge of town. From there, we could see anyone approaching from many miles away, allowing us to take the best course of action so as not to be seen. Ooh, new area. Although we kept watch every day, I had already informed Chiyo and the others of how long it would take before we needed to keep our eyes peeled. By horse, we were only a day or two away from Mirai. By foot, a direct route would easily take 1 week at the bare minimum. So given that Rizai had left on foot and the Kotokushi would travel by horse, we still had another few days before the worst case scenario could play out. Even if Rizai immediately informed the Kotokushi and they mobilized that very instant, we could still afford to skip watchman duty for the time being. Still nothing. I know I should feel relieved for the lack of action, but no matter how much time we spend up here, I can't help but feel anxious. Chiyo held herself with her good arm, making no attempt to hide her feelings. Is she? I don't think she is. That is nothing to be ashamed of. Anxiety keeps you alert. For someone who's potentially being hunted, it could mean the difference between life and death. Yeah, I guess you're right. Was it like this for you when you were working for them? For them? I know you don't like to talk about it, but right now we're... I know. At this moment, I don't have the freedom to keep secret any information pertaining to the Kotokushi. Truthfully, I can't say I ever felt that kind of anxiety. Rather, I was excited by the thought that a strong opponent might seek me out. The only part of my job that made me feel like you do now was preparing for situations just like this. As much as I tried to mask my own feelings, Hatsu Village's current situation was one I was already familiar with. Belonging to the Kouichirou, I was among those who sought to destroy villages like this, storming in and killing without hesitation. So although my situation had been reversed, I knew all too well how the assault would take place, and experience was not needed to predict the outcome. Wrecking villages, slaying innocent people, torching corpses, these are just a few of my favorite things. Whenever we came across a village like this, I feared the worst, praying that my assignment wouldn't end in such a manner. I guess he was always a good guy, and he just did bad things under the Kouichirou. Where's he getting red eyeshadow? But no matter how much I wished for a peaceful resolution, my fears always proved to be justified. Even if we didn't slaughter the entire village, our presence still ruined the lives of those we found. We took in slaves, stole horses, depleted the village's food supplies, and soon as we stepped outside of Mirai, we became villains. Chiyo watched me silently, as I told her about my past. Although we had been together for well over a year, I had never told Chiyo about the things I had done, or explained how I was as bad as the people hunting me. Unfortunately, as the Kouichirou threatened to make a second appearance in Hatsu Village, I had little choice. Even if Chiyo hates me for the things I've done, our survival is my top priority. Forgetting my past is a luxury I cannot afford anymore. What's important is that I convey my knowledge of how they operate. As a former captain of the Kouichirou, I know their tactics well. If anyone has a chance of fending them off, it's me. We would usually strike at our whim, but if we had reason to believe that the village contained combatants, our strategy differed. First, we would send a scout, unarmed, into the village. They would pretend to be a traveler or merchant, and gather information for us. Next, we'd use that information to enter the village discreetly, avoiding any watched areas of the village, usually at daybreak. Finally, we'd start by setting alight the houses of the strongest members of the village, then proceed to slaughter everyone indiscriminately. Even as I finally finished, Chiyo did not say a word. She looked at me with a worried expression on her face, as though torn between anxiety and fear. Chiyo did not approach me either, nor did she show any sign of speaking her thoughts. Sigh. I should have known this would happen. He said sigh. It's one thing to call yourself a samurai, but it's another to listen to a tale of government-sanctioned evil. I can only imagine what Chiyo must be thinking of me now. As the man responsible for her parents' deaths, for destroying her life, my only redeeming feature was that I was the lesser of two evils. Now that Chiyo knows the truth, I see. So that's why you don't talk about your old job. Chiyo finally opened her mouth, barely managing to squeeze out those two sentences. But even as she spoke, her expression did not change. Whatever chord I had struck with Chiyo, she did not know how to react, and for my part, I wasn't sure where to go from there. Yes, that was my old life. Please, whatever you think of me right now, keep it to yourself until this time of desperation has passed. If we are to be attacked... Yeah, I understand. I'll tell the others about the Kouichirou's tactics, but the rest, I'll leave out. Cool. Without another word, Chiyo climbed down from the roof, jumping onto the same pile of lumber we used to climb up. She hung her head as she walked, not once looking back at me or showing the slightest glimpse of her usual self. As I feared, the truth completely shattered the images she had of me, which I worked long and hard to cultivate. A full year of bonding gone, just like that, all those S-links down the drain, once the Kouichirou have come and gone, assuming they do come. This life Chiyo and I have been leading together may finally be over. Chiyo will oust me, and I'll be forced to move on, leaving this village in the hands of those left behind. That might not be so bad. Azai and Araki can take over most of my duties, and there are no dangers in this village which call for a samurai's strength. I'll be sad to go, of course, but for the beginning, I only stayed here in order to look after Chiyo, from the beginning. Now that she has Kana and the others, Chiyo may be better off without me. Sounds like he's psyching himself up to leave. 3 days later. I didn't narrate the 1 week later before, so it's been 10 days. I'm sorry. Since, Raikai, whatever his name was. In the wake of my confession to Chiyo, further changes took place in Hatsu Village. Starting with Chiyo, the villagers all began to act more depressed than anticipated, including the ever-energetic Azai and Araki. In turn, this lethargy slowed productivity down to a halt. Our meals were all smaller, no new traps were made, and torn clothing went without repair. We all simply wandered around the village aimlessly, like starving chickens waiting to be beheaded. Even as the villagers gave in to despair, I remained vigilant, keeping watch at all hours of the day. I headed out of the village in the direction of Mirai, practicing my swordsmanship as I waited for an enemy that may never come. Looking over the horizon, I'm sorry, I almost wished that the Katakushi would show up so we could finally end our struggle. But as I swung my blade at thin air, reliving my days as the Captain Nabatame, the only thing that came to me was reminiscence. Here, before I could leave the house to start my training for the day, Chiyo placed a wooden bowl full of fruit in front of me. Despite our damaged relationship, Chiyo still insisted that I eat whatever she prepared, and she refused to let me go hungry. Thank you, Chiyo. I appreciate it. Yeah. No sooner had she offered me breakfast than Chiyo retreated into the next room. Although she resolved to continue her role as a forager, Chiyo was otherwise just as depressed as everyone else, if not more so. She spoke to me very little and ate almost nothing herself, and had barely slept at all. Chiyo was in a downward spiral, and the only thing I could do was wait for fate to take its course. So sounds like she's gonna, like, die of loneliness or something. Upon arriving at the edge of the village, facing Mirai, I had expected to indulge in solitude. I had been training alone until this point, and nobody dared to go near me when I unsheathed my sword. On this day, however, that pattern was broken. Araki. Good morning, Kouichirou-sama. Kouichirou-sama, there you are! Waiting patiently near my usual training spot were Azai and Araki, both of whom were wearing serious expressions. I hadn't expected either boy to be awake so early. Since they arrived, both boys had consistently woken up later than even the elderly villagers. Either my good habits were finally rubbing off, or something was wrong. Good morning, boys. You were up early. What brings you out here? Araki looked down at the ground and swayed from side to side, unwilling or unable to convey the reason behind his appearance. Kouichirou-sama, Azai and I... Kouichirou-sama, please, train us. Train you? In contrast to his brother's reservation, Azai immediately blurted out their mutual desire. Please, Kouichirou-sama. Right, please train us. Azai and Araki both bowed their heads. You two want me to train you? This guy is slow. Yes, please teach us how to use the sword. You still have those two blades you took from that other samurai, right? Please, let us wield them. Yeah, we want to help protect the village. God dang it, he's totally Sean Connery now. Please, help us protect our family. Shut up, Wesley. Shut up, Wesley. Please, help us protect our family. I don't know. Needs work. Needs a lot of work. Needs a whole workshop. Faced with the honest, selfless pleas of two young boys, I sighed in exasperation and shook my head. Boys, I'm glad you want to help, but the Katakushi could be here any day now. Those men have trained for years, some even decades. Learning basic sword skills won't help you. But, Kouichirou-sama. No buts. If you try to fight those men, you're going to get yourselves killed. Do you understand that? He will not take pity on you because you're children. They will slaughter you with ease and without hesitation. I understand that you want to protect your family, but you can't do that if you are dead. If you truly wish to protect your family, then go with them, stay by their sides, and see to it that they escape with their lives. A whole bunch of dots. Understood, Kouichirou-sama. Azai and Araki slowly walked away, fighting back tears as they did. Once they had put a few meters between us, the two boys started to run straight towards their house. Neither one of them turned back to face me, nor did they say another word as they ran. My tone may have been a little harsh, but those boys needed to hear it. Childish dreams of heroism die the minute you enter battle. If those two fight, they will without a doubt be killed. So if making those boys resent me is what it takes to keep them alive, it's a price I'm willing to pay. Unfortunately, that seems to be a common pattern recently. Chiyo hasn't looked at me the same since I told her about my old job, and the friendliness I once received from the other villagers is now gone. Azai and Araki were most likely the only two left on my side, and now... a whole bunch of dots. I wandered past the edge of the village into the barren lands before me. Unsheathing my blade, I exhaled deeply, readying myself for another day of training in solitude. With my blade held firmly in my right hand, I wandered away from the village as far as I could go, without losing sight of my new home. A week or so of training may not make up for a year of peasant life, but it does remind me of the man I once was. Before I became a killer, I was a devoted swordsman. I trained every day and took every opportunity to improve myself. I fought strong opponents, many of whom were twice my age and far more experienced, yet I never lost. My endless training and natural talent propelled me forward, making it possible for me to become the best of the best. For all of those who praised and revered my skill, just as many people resented me. Every time I defeated a seasoned swordsman while sparring, I would gain another fan and a dozen enemies. Ordinary people feared me, and other samurai treated me with hostility, all because I surpassed them so easily. I dared to rise up higher than they could ever reach, and for that, I was hated. Through the tough times, only 2 people stayed by my side. My childhood friends, Haru and Ito. Itao? Like the 2 sides of my conscience, Haru and Ito always spurred me on in conflicting ways, both with my best interest at heart. My dear Haru always wanted me to give up on joining the Katakushi. She practically begged me to give up on swordsmanship and to live a normal life. Itao, on the other hand, considered us to be rivals. He foresaw the 2 of us joining the Katakushi together, rising the ranks and forever competing as we fought side by side. But now that life is over, and I failed to make either one of their dreams come true. I could not give Haru the happy life she so deserved, nor will I ever again fight by Itao's side. All I have left now is this village and the people within it. My daughter, Chiyo, my 2 pupils, Araki and Azai, their sister, Chiyo's good friend, Kana, the kind-hearted families who fled from Mirai. Before I realized it, I was swinging my sword angrily, cutting away at the air before me while deep in thought. I thrust my blade forward, then turned around and slashed at the invisible enemy behind me. As though dancing, I swiftly moved in a chaotic yet rhythmic pattern, playing out a scene of carnage from my past. I disemboweled and beheaded soldier after soldier, painting the walls red with their blood. Whether they love me or hate me, I'll protect every person in this village. I am the village leader, and I will see this fight through to the bitter end. The Katakushi will come, if not because of that scout, then for the sake of exploration or to expand the kingdom. And when they do, I'll be ready. Poof, back home. After many hours of tireless training, I was tired. I returned home to eat lunch with Chiyo. I had worked up both a sweat and an appetite, thanks to the hot rays of the sun beaming down on me, so a bow full of juicy fruit sounded more tantalizing than ever. Upon walking through the door, however, I immediately realized that my exertion wouldn't be rewarded so easily. About time you got back, Ku. You reek of sweat. Waiting with a stern look on her face, Chiyo addressed me the moment I walked inside. Yes, it is rather hot out there. It's easy enough to work up a sweat even without moving, let alone while swinging a blade around. Is that right? Chiyo stared at me dubiously, as though my reply didn't matter in the slightest. Did something happen, Chiyo? Or is this still about what I told you the other day? Don't jump to conclusions. Not everything is about you, Ku. Maybe you should think less about yourself and more about those around you. With obvious hostility in her voice, Chiyo failed to answer my question. Unfortunately, with no idea why she was angry, I could only act like my usual self. Others around me, are you talking about yourself? I've been giving you space because I thought that was what you wanted. If not, all you had to do was, I'm talking about Kana's little brothers. I don't know what you said to them, but those boys have been depressed and crying all morning. Now Kana's angry at me because of something you said. Just what did you say to those boys exactly? What did you do to screw up their lives? The second I tried to make a joke, Chiyo lashed out, completely unwilling to play along. I could see fury in her eyes, unlike anything I'd seen since we first met, back when her parents' corpses were still fresh, and we were mere strangers. This is an insane overreaction. She's a crazy person. You should, leave the village. That's my sound advice to you. Hey now, calm down. There's a rock star. There's no need to get upset. The boys wanted me to show them how to use the sword, and I refused, that's all. Perhaps I could have been nicer about it, but I still feel that my decision was warranted. Warranted or not, you've just made the entire Kihai family hate you. Well, they sound like irrational people too. Don't think I could do anything to make them like me if they react this way to that. Goodness gracious. You need to apologize to those boys right now. You want me to apologize? I told those boys not to throw their lives away. How is that something to apologize for? I don't care who's in the wrong. That's logical. Just apologize to them. You're the adult here, so act like one. Tell those boys that you're sorry so we can all be friends again. Yes, the most important thing of all, friendship. Faced with Chiyo's accusations and demands, I could feel my calm disposition slipping away. The stress of preparing Hatsu village for an imminent bloodbath was weighing on me, not to mention the cold treatment I'd been receiving from the villagers. Ever since Raizai showed up, life in the village had become unbearable. Friends? Don't make me laugh. Not one person in this village considers me a friend. You all call out, Kouichirou-sama, Kouichirou-sama. We need something, yet the second real conflict arrives, nobody wants anything to do with me. But that's fine by me. I don't need to be loved or even liked. I will continue to do what I think is right. Are you even listening to yourself? Just how self-centered can you be? This isn't about you. It's about doing what's best for everyone. We should be preparing for the worst right now. Instead, everyone's too busy getting mad about nothing. She's a hypocrite. So swallow your pride, apologize, and do your duty as a village leader. That's exactly what I was doing. What kind of village leader would tell children to join the front lines or give them weapons? I was protecting you all, just as I always have. Damn it, Koo. At some point, you need to realize that sheltering people isn't the same as protecting them. That's a good point. You should be telling those boys that they can do what they can do to help, not just shooting them down. I sighed angrily at Chiyo's response. This is hopeless. All we're doing is going around in circles. Chiyo has no idea what was said, she's just unconditionally taking her friend's side. While true, her final point was a good one. Is this what it's like to be a father, or is it merely the misfortune of being a leader? Chiyo, please stop acting like you know everything. I did tell those boys how they could help. I told them to stay with their family, and to escape together. Tell me, how is that wrong? That's not wrong, but nothing. I have not erred here, and I will not stand beside children and watch them get slaughtered. Chiyo, I appreciate that you want everyone to get along, but it's not always that simple. Sometimes people simply cannot see eye to eye no matter what. I turned those boys down, knowing that they might hate me for doing so, but if that's what it takes to keep them alive, then I regret nothing. I still can't agree with you deciding everything for them. Even if they lose their lives doing so, those boys have a right to decide if they want to fight or not. Sure, they can fight, as won't help them fight, right? Now you're just trying to best me. You don't believe a word you just said, do you? I do so. No, you don't. You realize that you were in the wrong, and now you're trying to cover up your mistake. This is like, look at that smug face. That's a hittable face if I've ever seen one. You should realize by now that Father knows best. It's even more hittable. Hit him. You're wrong, it's not like that. I was just sticking up for those boys, that's all. It's okay, Chiyo. I accept your apology. Though if you really want to apologize, know that the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I laughed at Chiyo's attempt to maintain her dignity, then offered her a way out. I didn't want to argue any more than she did, and if giving Chiyo another task would help keep her distracted a while, then both sides would benefit. So that's what you were after. Fine, if preparing your lunch is what it takes to put this conversation behind us, then I'm ready whenever you are. Let us go for a little trip into the forest, shall we? Now that's more... Wait a second. Us? I'll grab the food. You need a bath. I wasn't kidding about you reeking of sweat, Koo. I suppose I have been training since daybreak. Even if I can't smell myself, I'm definitely covered in sweat. Okay. A quick bath, lunch, then back to training. Today might not be a total waste after all. And scene! Okay, here we are in the forest. I'm gonna end the episode here, despite this lovely chance for fruit-filled luncheon stuff. I can't tell how much I think remains in this story. I'd say we're at least halfway. We'll see if I'm completely wrong or not. In the next episode, or eventually. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Signature catchphrase.